I have set up a test to determine whether Atmos is better than 5.1 surround sound. For a long time, 5.1 has been the format for enjoying home theater. But now we have Atmos, and now people debate whether Atmos is actually worth the upgrade. So today we're going to test it. I've chosen 4 movies that include both the 5.1 track and the Atmos track. And so I'm going to show my wife clips from each of those movies. She's going to watch each clip twice, once with the 5.1 track and once with the Atmos track, to see if she can hear the difference. So I showed you 4 clips from 4 different movies. We're going to start with Saving Private Ryan. Which clip do you think was Atmos and which do you think was 5.1?
I think that for Saving Private Ryan, the second time was the Atmos track.
Okay.
It just felt like the sound was everywhere and not just the front and sides. I also felt like there was more atmospheric sound, but it also felt like there were more places that specific sounds were coming from. So yeah. And there were sounds that I felt like I didn't hear the first time I listened. Like there was a machine gun fire at one point, and I could hear like shells hitting the ground, and I did not notice that in the first track. So I think that the second clip was the Atmos one.
Okay. All right. You're right.
Oh, good.
Our second clip, which comes from the movie Godzilla vs. Kong. And it's the scene where they are fighting out in the ocean and they're on the aircraft carrier and Godzilla and Kong are just going at it. Which clip was Atmos?
I think that the second clip was Atmos this time.
How confident are you?
I feel really confident about all 4 of these.
You feel very confident about all 4?
Yes, and not only do I feel confident, I felt confident within like a few seconds of each clip.
Really?
Whether it was the 5.1 first or the Atmos track first, I was like fairly confident within just a few seconds.
Interesting.
So if I'm wrong, I'm going to be really embarrassed.
Okay, so you say the
But I do believe that Godzilla vs. Kong, the second clip, was the Atmos track.
You are correct.
Oh, good. And it was different. There were different things that stood out to me this time. The music soundtrack was, I felt like more prominent in this one. Like I could hear it on the sides. I felt like I could hear it coming from the sides, and it was just enhanced. Like it enhanced the overall scene, and it was also just the music sounded better to me too. So
okay, all right, very cool.
Oh, and also I would say the monster sounds were a little bit more resonant. It felt like I could hear them all around. You know, these big bellows from the monsters felt like they were just really
kind of like more echoey, immersive.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, and there were a couple of like missile projectiles that I noticed going like across the top too.
There was a jet flyover that came from behind. I noticed that very, very prominently.
And even I think there was one part too where like some rubble or something flew across the room.
Okay.
That I noticed too.
So you got that. So you're 2 for 2 so far.
Yes.
Okay, let's go to clip number 3, which comes from the movie Dr. Sleep, and it's the scene when Rose the Hat gets trapped by the girl. And which clip do you think was Atmos?
Yeah, that was another one that was hard to watch twice because it was kind of creepy and disturbing, and I'm not a huge horror fan.
Well, setting aside the content of the movie.
Right, I think that the Atmos track was the first one.
You are correct.
Okay, and I noticed that, like I said, within just a few seconds. It was like the clip started out where she kind of goes up into the room and it like rotates around like an axis, and I felt like I could hear the sound kind of flip. Like it felt like the sound moved with the room as it was shifting, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
There were also some really good like sounds in the heights, like scuttling across, and like a little rattle off up there. So it was a lot of the little sounds that stood out to me in that one.
One of the things that I noticed in the Dr. Sleep clip was when the girl was flipping through the woman's filing cabinets and searching the cabinets, the sounds on the 5.1 obviously were focused solely on the sides. And in the Atmos track, you could just hear it all over. It was just like...
I would say
it was just everywhere.
That was my feeling during almost all of the clips, was just like the 5.1, it was very distinct, front and sides. Front and, like, is the sound coming from the sides or is it coming from the front? Whereas the Atmos really was just atmospheric. Like, it was just felt like it was everywhere. So,
just everywhere.
Yeah.
And this is kind of a nebulous description. I don't really know how to describe it, but the scenes felt, now granted, I knew which clip was which, so maybe this is placebo, but that's why we had you do the blind test. This is for you. But for me, I just felt like each of the scenes, when it was the Atmos track, just felt more intense and like a heightened sense of urgency. Like it was just more everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. It was richer, fuller, more intense. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. All right. 3 for 3. Can you go 100%?
I think I can, George.
But you claim to be confident, and so far you have been. All right. Our fourth and final clip came from The Matrix, and it's the scene when they go into the government building and have the shootout in the government building lobby.
Yeah, and I felt like I could tell even before they went in, like when they were just going through like the security check.
Yeah.
Like I thought that I could have just listened to that and still known.
So before the action even started.
Before the shooting started, well, I mean, I guess he shoots the security guard in there, but yeah, like I thought I could tell even just there that it was the second clip was in Atmos.
You are correct. You are correct. Wow. 4 for 4.
Yeah, like it was just really obvious. There was no question on any of them either. I really felt like I could tell really well.
So I think given how confident you are, and like how, like even within just a few seconds, you were able to figure it out and hear the difference, I think this speaks to how poorly designed my original experiment was when we did a few videos back.
I agree.
Because in that experiment, if you haven't seen the video, which you should go check it out, it's definitely worth seeing. We watched the clips, and it was the Atmos track in both clips, except that in one of them, all I did was just disable the height speakers.
Right.
And that's not a true test of how effective Atmos is, because it was still the same Atmos clip. It's just some of the speakers were disabled. Whereas this experiment, it's actually 5.1, which is a legacy surround sound format. This is a surround sound format that's been used for decades, and Atmos is the new one, and so it's a better comparison between the old style format versus the new style format.
And with the first time we tested this, we were still hearing high sounds. It was just a matter of like, were they coming from those speakers or those ones? Like there were still sounds that were high. Yeah. In both of the tracks. So.
Yeah.
But The Matrix, like there were some things that stood out to me in that one too. Like he walks into the room and someone yells freeze, and it really sounded in the Atmos track. It really sounded like it was echoing through the whole room, you know.
I picked up on that as well, because they're in a large lobby, a lot
with
of like
hard surfaces everywhere.
Granite, you know, columns, and so you would expect it to be a very echoey location. And so when he yells freeze, I picked up on that as well.
Where the guy yelled freeze, and then at the end he like throws the rifle on the ground, and it like makes a really like loud echoey sound too there. So I picked that up. And then I also heard more like high frequency sounds, like the shells kind of pinging when they hit the floor tiles.
Oh, yeah.
That was a sound that I didn't notice in the 5.1. The 5.1, though, I have to say that was still good. Like, there were places where a shot was fired in the front of the room, and I heard something like break in the back. Like, so it still had good sound. It was still,
Yeah.
still a good surround experience. It was just not as big as the Atmos one.
Not as immersive.
Yeah, not as immersive, and there were some sounds that I think we're missing too.
Yeah. So this 5.1 versus Atmos topic is kind of hotly debated online sometimes, and some people are just really they seem really invested in the 5.1 format. And I have a theory as to why they are convinced that Atmos is just a gimmick and not good, and that 5.1 it was the best and it continues to be the best. Now, I'm not saying this is the answer or that this is the full explanation, but it's possible that if you have enjoyed an audio format like 5.1 for literally decades, and then if something new comes along and that new experience is superior to the old one, then maybe in your mind you might think, oh, I have enjoyed an inferior product for decades, and so I don't want to think or consider that I've been enjoying something that wasn't the best. But I don't think that's a good way to look at it. Like, I think it doesn't diminish the enjoyment that you had of something in the past. It just means now you've got something even better to enjoy.
Yeah, for sure. And if you don't have an Atmos setup, there's still it still sounded great in the 5.1.
Yeah.
There's definitely no putting down of that format. The Atmos was just a little bit. It was just better.
Well, there you have it. Atmos wins.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching.